Have you noticed something unusual happening in global trade right now? Something that could reshape the balance of economic power across continents. And surprisingly, the conversation is not coming from Washington. It is quietly unfolding in Tokyo. During a detailed interview in Japan, Mark Carney revealed an idea that could dramatically reshape the structure of the world economy. A new trading alliance, one capable of linking Europe and Asia, one that could involve nearly 1.5 billion people, and one that could potentially become the most powerful economic partnership ever created. If such a project moves forward, it would significantly alter the global trade balance and deliver a strong signal about how countries are reacting to the turbulence created by the economic policies of Donald Trump.
The second thing is that at the core of that speech, the pivot in the middle of the speech is towards a positive agenda. Okay, we have these challenges, integration's being weaponized. What do you do about it? Well, you go find countries that share your values on specific issues. They're not going to share your values on everything. And then you build together. And you recognize at the same time, and this is maybe where I should have started, is that you can't be truly sovereign, you can't be truly independent just by yourself. But if you pair up with somebody who's going to use that relationship against you, then of course, again, you're not truly sovereign, truly independent.
During the discussion, Carney explained something very important. The international system that guided global trade and cooperation for many decades is no longer operating the way it once did. According to him, the world is experiencing what he described as a break in the global economic order. Economic integration, which was originally meant to strengthen cooperation between nations, is increasingly being used as leverage in the Trump era. Supply networks are being adjusted for political purposes. Trade partnerships are turning into geopolitical instruments, and economic pressure is gradually replacing traditional diplomacy. This is the reality governments must now navigate, and it is forcing countries to reconsider how they defend their economic independence. Because when a nation's economy depends heavily on a single partner, that partner gains the ability to use that dependence as leverage. One of the biggest drivers behind this shift is the rise of economic nationalism coming from Washington. Under Donald Trump, tariffs have become a central part of political strategy. Allies have faced threats of trade restrictions. Supply chains have been disrupted, and long-standing agreements have become uncertain. For countries like Canada, that creates a serious strategic challenge. When the world's largest economy begins using trade as a bargaining tool, other countries must adjust rapidly. And that appears to be exactly what Mark Carney is doing. Rather than waiting for the next move from Washington, Canada is actively working to create new economic partnerships.
You're not going to agree with everybody on everything at the same time or with the same intensity and prioritization. So the coalition of the willing, which is backstopping Ukraine, it's quite broad, but it's not everybody. And that is different than who will come together on critical minerals, for example. And it's different from something that is, again, bigger, much more ambitious, which is something we are working with the Australians and others, which is to bring together the Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, and the European Union as one connected trading bloc of 1.5 billion people, in fact, would be the biggest, far and away, the biggest trading bloc in the world. And that's what you can do when you search for issues where you have common ground.
During the Tokyo interview, Mark Carney revealed an idea that could dramatically transform the architecture of global trade. And it is not a small concept. It is a vision aimed at linking two of the most influential economic regions on the planet into a single strategic framework. On one side stands the European Union, one of the largest and most sophisticated economic blocs in the world. On the other side is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, a major trade agreement connecting economies across Asia and the Pacific. Carney's proposal is to bring these two systems closer together, not as independent agreements operating separately, but as a connected economic structure. If such a system develops, the combined market could represent roughly 1.5 billion people, stretching from Europe across the Atlantic toward North America and then across the Pacific toward Asia. The consequences of such a development would be enormous. A unified EU-Pacific trading structure could immediately become the largest economic bloc on the planet, larger than the United States and larger than China, with the power to influence global trade rules, supply networks, and industrial cooperation. Consider what that would mean in practice. Businesses operating within that system would gain access to an enormous range of markets. Supply chains could extend smoothly across continents. Critical sectors from energy and manufacturing to advanced technology and strategic minerals could function inside one massive integrated economic environment. In other words, instead of a global economy dominated by a handful of superpowers, this approach would create a coalition-based market where countries collaborate to strengthen their shared resilience. And this concept is not purely theoretical. According to Carney, conversations about deeper cooperation between these trade systems are already underway. The objective is straightforward. Identify countries that share similar values and economic priorities, collaborate where cooperation is beneficial, and construct a dense network of economic relationships strong enough to absorb geopolitical shocks. Because in a world where trade ties can quickly become political weapons, diversification becomes the strongest protection. What Carney is describing is diversification on a global scale. A trade network so extensive, so interconnected, and so economically influential that no single nation could easily control it. And if that vision eventually materializes, Canada would likely occupy a central role within it.
If I may, we're negotiating a free trade agreement with Philippines. We've launched negotiations with Thailand. The ASEAN group of countries, we're in what we hope this year will be the final stages of that free trade negotiation. Of course, I'm just coming here from Australia, where we really stepped up the relationship. We have a great relationship, Canada and Australia, but it could be far, far deeper. I think that's something Prime Minister Albanese and myself, our cabinets agreed. And then also India, deepening. So there is a natural, we have deep ties with Europe. We have deep institutional ties. CETA is one example, the free trade agreement with the European Union. We're basically treated as a domestic producer as part of their defense, the European defense procurement process. So all of that's there. That gets deepened.
This is where Canada's approach becomes especially intriguing. Canada already maintains strong trade relationships with both sides of this potential alliance. It has a major trade agreement with the European Union, and it is also an important member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership that places Canada in a unique position to act as a bridge between these two economic systems. In other words, while the United States is becoming more inward-focused under Trump, Canada appears to be moving in the opposite direction. It is reaching outward, strengthening connections, reinforcing partnerships, and positioning itself near the center of a new global economic network. Carney also emphasized that this emerging system will look very different from the traditional one. Instead of rigid alliances, countries will increasingly form partnerships based on specific issues. Some coalitions will concentrate on trade, others will focus on defense collaboration, others will work together on critical minerals, advanced technologies, or energy security. Carney described this model as a system of variable geometry alliances, where countries cooperate in areas where their interests overlap. It is a flexible structure of international cooperation designed for a far less predictable world. And it reflects a major shift in how global politics is evolving. If Carney's proposal moves forward, the consequences could be enormous. A combined EU-Pacific trade system would create a marketplace larger than any single nation. It could shape international regulations, restructure supply chains, and influence how global commerce functions for decades. In effect, it would establish a new center of gravity within the global economy. And the driving force behind that transformation would not come from Washington. It would emerge from a coalition of countries working together across continents. What makes this development particularly fascinating is that it reflects a deeper transformation unfolding in international politics. The old order, dominated by a few superpowers, is gradually evolving into something more complex. A web of partnerships, regional alliances, and flexible coalitions built around shared interests. And in that changing system, Canada appears to be positioning itself as more than just a middle power. It is positioning itself as a connector, a country capable of linking continents, building alliances, and influencing the next stage of global trade. If the vision Mark Carney outlined in Tokyo becomes reality, it could mark the beginning of a completely new chapter in the world economy. If you want clear analysis of the biggest geopolitical shifts shaping Canada and the world, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next report. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think Mark Carney's strategy of expanding global alliances is the right response to instability in the global trading system? Or should Canada choose a different path? Share your thoughts in the comments below.